This
Academy
conference
Committee.
will now be recorded.
Jane is going to start us off. So Jane Lynch Gilbert, who's the clerk for the Nichewaug Inn and Academy meeting, the committee.
So welcome, everybody. I'm Jane Lynch Gilbert, and as Anne introduced, I am on the NIAC, the Nichewaug Inn and Academy Committee 2020, now 2021. And we want to welcome you all here. It looks like we're getting a really good return from our flyers and our mailings. So we wanted to tell you about basically the rules of tonight's meeting. The meeting is a presentation in most purposes. We will do a question and answer at the end, but for the presentation part, which we will be getting to very shortly, everybody's mics and everybody's video will be shut off other than the person that is presenting. So right now we can see under participants, we can see how many people are here. And we also have a chat line up in the upper right corner of your screen. It's black. Right now it says 2 on my end. If you click on that, then you can send anything into the chat. But at the bottom of that chat screen, we're going to ask you to send it only to the MRPC organizer or organizer. And then that way we won't be having conversations on the side of our screen while the presentation's going on. And Kayla, who is our Montechusett regional person that is our moderator, she will be overseeing all of the chat, and she will be overseeing who's talking and opening and closing cameras and mics. So as I said, Kayla works for MRPC, and also we have Karen Chapman here. Karen Chapman is our MRPC liaison. We have Henry Woolsey, our select board liaison on our committee. We have Nancy Allen, who is also now part of our committee because we have 2 select people in town. We only have 2 people on our select board, and so it's incumbent of us to have both of them on there for meeting purposes. And then we also have Ann Lewis, who opened the meeting, and Ann Lewis is the chair of the NIAC 2020. And you will be hearing from all of those different people as the meeting progresses. I do want to relay that we would love to have anyone that would like to share in the chat to the organizer their email and their phone number for any kind of future correspondence, or if they're thinking they might like to be on part of the plans going forward. At the end of the presentation, you'll see that we do have things that we are needing people to help us with over the next few months. So it would be great if you could send it to us there. You can also send it to nicheprop@outlook.com. And one of the important things is if you can't use chat because you're calling in or because it's just not working for you, please feel free to take my number. You can call me after I've done my presentation here, and I will put into the chat anything that people that aren't able to do that, if they have questions or comments. My number is 978-790-7107. And you can call me or text me after I'm done presenting. I'm going to mute myself on the screen here. I want to make sure that we're up to about 45 people now, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that this meeting is being recorded. That way we will have it for posterity. We also will have the chat saved for our personal committee use. We are not going to publicize anybody's chat, questions, answers and who they are. So the chat is going to be a private for the committee only. And I think that's probably it. I'm going to introduce Henry Woolsey, who's going to start off the meeting. So Henry, take it away.
Well, thank you, Jane. Yes, I am Henry Woolsey, and I'm a member of the Petersham Select Board. First, I wanted to welcome Senator Goby. We're so happy that you're able to join us. And if you wanted to unmute and say hello to us, that would be great.
Thank you, Henry. Hello, everyone. You know, I haven't done the go-to meeting. I'm usually Zoom or Teams, so this is a whole new format here. But everybody looks great, the ones I can see anyway. I appreciate Jane and Henry. Thank you for inviting me to this, and I do want to pass on for Representative Whips. Unfortunately, she couldn't log on tonight. But obviously, if we can be helpful going forward, because I think, I was first elected. This will be my 20th year. And people have been talking about what to do with the inn for 20 years at least, probably much longer than that. It's always the easiest thing to do is to do nothing, right? It's hard to do something and to make plans. So my hat is off to everyone who wants to get involved in any way that I can be helpful. I am going to stay on for a little bit, but I had committed. I'm actually speaking with the state Grange tonight at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to be jumping off the meeting in a little bit, but any way that I can be helpful, that Representative Whips can be helpful, please know that we are there to add any support that we can. So thank you, and thanks to you and the good work of MRPC as well.
Well, thank you, Senator, for your interest and for joining us for tonight as time permits. And I did want to also acknowledge that a fellow Select Board member, Nancy Allen, is on the session tonight. As an abutter, she's recused from the Nichewaug project other than having a limited role as needed under the rule of necessity under the state ethics guidelines. But she's still a great help in all town business. I think, again, I want to thank everyone for joining the meeting tonight. We definitely appreciate your interest. Many, if not most, Petersham residents are all too familiar with the issue of this town-owned property. It's been the subject of several town meetings since the town acquired it in 2007. If people happen not to be familiar with it, there's a great deal of information posted on the town's website on the Nichewaug Inn page, and we would encourage people to look at that. It's really quite a resource. Over the past 5 years, the town has done two noteworthy things with this property. One was funding a market and feasibility analysis that had financial pro formas. That entire study was on the website. The town also paid for the removal of the asbestos materials from the buildings. But tonight we do not want to rehash the history. As the senator mentioned, it's a long one. I see many people on the call who have dealt with this property over the years. We do want and need to move forward. It's important to remember, however, that many parts of the building are in pretty rough shape. Time has not been kind to the building. And as a reminder to town residents, any reuse options for the property that require an expenditure from the town stabilization fund or involve conveyance of the property to another entity, either of these actions require a 2/3 vote at a town meeting, and that has been our obstacle in the past. So we need a broader agreement for appropriate uses and a course forward. So in that effort to seek a resolution about the future of this property in December of 2019, the Select Board appointed yet another Nichewaug Inn committee, and subsequently applied for a district local technical assistance grant of planning services from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission for 2020 and also again for 2021. The survey that we'll be reviewing tonight was conducted under this grant to help the town gauge current public opinion. I want to thank MRPC for your support and to the work of the members of the Nichewaug Committee, Ann Lewis, Chair, and Jane Lynch Gilbert. as well as many town employees and various residents who've been helping with this property in different capacities over the many years that we've been grappling with it. So now, without any further comment, I did want to just turn it over to Karen Chapman, who's a senior planner with the MRPC. She has been working with the town on this survey and on the Nichewaug property. So she will be presenting the survey results. And then, as Jane mentioned, we'll have time for a question and answer period. But again, thank you all for your attendance tonight. I see many familiar names attending. So we should have a good discussion after the presentation. And now over to you, Karen.
Well, thank you very much, Henry, and thank you, Jane and Ann and Senator Goby. I'm just going to share my screen now from the beginning. Here, a slideshow. Sorry, here we go. We practiced this how many times and then, okay. There we go. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. So yes, this is the Nichewaug Inn Academy Public Information Meeting. I'm Karen Chapman. I'm a senior planner at the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. This is made possible by a district local technical assistance grant from the Department of Housing and Community Development. Each year, the legislature sets forth $2.8 million for regional planning agencies to give technical assistance for free to our communities. So each year, MRPC and the other regional planning agencies get a boatload of money, and we put out a request to see if our communities need assistance. And like Henry said, Petersham responded to that. And we worked hard last year virtually to put together this survey, and also applied this year to continue the project because we didn't get to finish some of the tasks from last year. So I just want to start with this picture. I know I'm not sure everyone recognizes this picture. It is the Nichewaug. There's the Academy building here, the auditorium here, the old historic inn here, the dining area here, and the kitchen wing here, and then the chapel music area is here. So the select board's request last year requested that we work closely with the NIAC committee on how best to maintain the character and function of the town center, while also developing possibilities for use of the 6.6 acre property. They also wanted us to evaluate potentially suitable uses of the site and portions of existing buildings that might be usable to address any needs that the community has right now. And then to help guide the town towards a specific plan that is chosen that will benefit the community. So the project tasks for this, working with the NIAC committee, were first to conduct and evaluate a community survey of residents with ideas about the future of the property. We would facilitate public input at a community meeting to seek consensus on the type and scope of possible uses for the site and identify sources of public and private monies to fund these options. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a public meeting the way we wanted to because of COVID. So we've substituted this public meeting to present the survey, and we will, as well as the funding options we weren't able to work out. So those are rolled into this year's project. So we will be having another public meeting to discuss this further when CDC guidelines and state guidelines allow us to meet in person. So the story on the survey, we worked throughout the summer to develop the survey questions to most effectively gauge the needs and wants of the residents. We wanted to pose the questions so that we could narrow it down to options that we could build consensus in the community around. So we released the survey in September, and it was open for about 5 weeks. We mailed it to 530 households, and on each paper survey that we mailed out, there was a number on the survey so that we could track if anyone was misusing the survey, so to speak. If, you know, we didn't want like one person entering 10 surveys. So we thought by numbering them and then asking the persons to enter the number online if they were choosing so, we would be able to track that. So on the mailed survey, we included also the link to the survey online and placed the survey info and link on the website so that there were many options for people to access the survey and fill it out. So for the results, question 1 is what I was talking about with the number. If you are completing the survey online, please enter the number from the upper right corner of the first page of the survey mailed to you. We were able to get 136 individual responses out of approximately 1,019 residents who are greater than 18 years old, which is about a 13% response, which isn't too bad for a small community like yours. There were also 122 households out of approximately 473 occupied units in town, and that's about a 25%, 26% return. Those statistics, the 1,019 and 473 come from the US Census Bureau estimates. So it's a fairly good response. Obviously, we would have liked more responses since this topic has been around for a really long time. People are probably tired of answering the questions, but we wanted to try and get a sense of what people were thinking about the property now. So question 2, what is your age? So this is a pie chart of the actual estimated population in Petersham. And I wanted to show these 3 pie pieces highlighted. This is the percent of people, oh, sorry. This is, I want to show the percentage of population that is over 55, which is 45%. I just wanted to show you a breakdown of the actual population. And then I'm going to show you the age of the people who participated in the survey. So again, I highlighted these sections of 55 plus, and 71% of the respondents were over age 55. But the other, so I have 15 to 24-year-olds and 18 to 24-year-olds. There were only 6, I believe, 18 to 24-year-olds who answered, and these are the other categories. So I just wanted to point out that you do have an aging population, and the people who responded to the survey the most were over 55. Question 3, how long have you lived in Petersham? We just want to get an idea of how people relate to the property and do they have a lot of knowledge about the property. So 55% of the respondents, or 77 people, have lived in Petersham over 20 years. And if you use the 15 to 20 years, it's 63% of the respondents have lived here more than 15 years. And so they have a lot of knowledge about the property and probably frustrations as well. So we can surmise that, you know, the opinions are knowledgeable opinions. So that's why we put this question in there. So question 4, we now get into the meat of it. We decided that we wanted to find out which buildings people would want to save, which ones they'd want to get rid of. And so we posed the question, if a structural evaluation provided evidence that certain parts of the Nichewaug Inn and Academy buildings were able to be repurposed, which parts of the property would you support repurposing? And so we gave options for all of the buildings. So we had repurpose all the buildings, then we had each individual building whether you wanted to repurpose that, and then some of the original stone features. And then we have the question, demolish all of the structures. So in this question, we assumed that if you did not support repurposing the building, that you were in favor of demolishing that particular building. So these yellow highlighted ones just show the majority of the vote for that particular building. On my next slide here, it'll be clearer. So this is an overhead plan of the building. You can see that the library is here, just to orient you. This is the library. This is the new academy building, the kitchen wing. They're all labeled. So this is an overview of the property. So in the voting for question 4, for demolishing, we had the auditorium, which is here. 60% were in favor of demolishing the auditorium wing. The academy building, which is this one, 54% were in favor of demolishing that one. The in addition, which is the closest part to the library, 54% were in favor of demolishing that. The kitchen wing, which is over here on the end next to the garage, 53% were in favor of demolishing. And then the dining room, which connects the kitchen to the historic inn, 47% were in favor of demolishing that. So as far as repurposing any of the buildings, the 62% of the respondents were in favor of keeping original stone features such as the fireplaces, the portico, the front terrace wall that goes across the front here. And then 61% were in favor of repurposing the historic inn. And then 59% were in favor of repurposing the chapel and music room area. So that gives you an idea of what the results were. So this is a summary. Demolish the auditorium wing, the kitchen wing, the historic inn addition, dining room wing, and new academy building, and repurpose the historic inn, the chapel music room, and the original stone features. There were a number of comments on this question, 56 to be exact, and there were strong opinions in both directions. And I chalked that up to, like I said, people have lived here a long time. They've been dealing with this issue for a long time. And people have, they just want to get it done, get it over with, do something with it. We're tired of talking about it. So we will take into consideration all the comments from this survey. So question 5, we wanted to sort of piece together. So in question 4, you decided which buildings you really wanted. And so this question is, what would you like to use those buildings for? So based on your answers to question 4, which following uses would you support for the property that would be beneficial to the people of Petersham? So this is a very hard to read table. I see that. So I've summarized it here. So as far as supporting uses, the number 1 by far was outdoor recreation at 78%, a senior community center at 71%, senior housing at 64%, mixed uses, which is housing and small service businesses at 59%, and performing arts, artist, musician, play and workspace, 56%. It hasn't been determined yet by the committee or the selectmen whether we are going to pursue the top 3 uses, the top 5 uses. That hasn't been determined yet, but at least we have a strong sense of what the people that responded to the survey are in favor of. And this is just, the same thing, but against. So individual house lots, people are highly against, and I understand why that would be, because, it's just more houses. It doesn't really serve the town very well, except for new taxes. Not that that's a bad thing. New taxes are a good thing, but as far as individual house lots, that's not really helping the town with any needs that they have. And so the comments on this one, there were 60 comments on this question. There were many, many comments about the library. and the committee has not discounted the library in any way. They're just trying to focus on what to do with the property. And if that means, oh, we're gonna file an A&R with the planning board and we're gonna cut off a piece of the property and that's gonna be for the library. None of that has been determined yet, but the committee is very aware that people are concerned about the library, and we'll take that into consideration moving forward. So question 6, how many housing units would you support if housing is an element of the repurposed site? So in the last question, people really didn't want individual house lots, but 57% would be willing to have 1 to 6 and possibly 7 to 12, even though 50% were against 7 to 12. Those units would have to be in a denser sort of construction, but that hasn't been determined yet either, if that is the route to go. If it were senior housing, it would probably be a very dense construction of, 1 to 10 units. So question 7, what approaches for financing would you support in the repurposing of the property? We were a little reticent to put a question about financing on the survey because it is a contentious question, but you can't really move forward without knowing about the financing. So we wanted to get a sense from people how willing they would be to have taxes raised or participate in raising money for this. So we came up with this list of possible financing methods. Not surprisingly, people are mostly against all town finance, because who wants their taxes to go up? None of us do, but they go up every year. People are in favor of having a developer finance it, pre-sale of housing units, using the value of the property as a match for loans or grants. And that works where, the town owns the property and that property has value. Whether it has buildings on it or not, it has value, and you can use that value to leverage other loans, other grants, and developers, frankly. Because if a developer doesn't have to purchase the property, they're already ahead of the game, and you're participating in making that property useful. So just a little explanation on the using the value of the property. So this will be discussed further at the next public meeting, which we hope to have when the COVID guidelines are relaxed. So one of the things that the committee will be looking at in the next few months is financing. So if there's anybody out there who's particularly interested in this, knows information about this, would like to participate in this, can contact the committee, and hopefully your talents will be used to their fullest. So the summary on this one: charitable donations, town partnering with a CDC, partial town financing with nonprofit investor or developer providing balance, and then against all town financed, developer finance with town forgiving some or all of the potential value of the property. I think the way people answered this, they didn't quite understand the, it's hard to understand financing when you just have a short sentence or phrase and you don't really know what it is. So a lot of the comments were confusion about, they didn't understand it, which is fine. We tried to explain it as best we could in the short amount of space we had, but there was a lot of confusion. Mostly people didn't want any tax increase, and a large majority were concerned that the town maintain control of the property and the site during this whole project, so that nothing could be done that wasn't approved by the town. you know. Excuse me. So question 8 was sort of just an informational. There are the Nichewaug property on the town business tab on Petersam's website has a ridiculous amount of information in there. Excuse me. And if you're having trouble sleeping, it's a good look. But there's demographic statistics that we put on there as part of the survey. There's the survey results on there. You can read all the comments if you'd like. There's information about median income and real estate costs and values. And this says, you know, that we would be holding a public information session in the fall of 2020. That was what we were hoping when we put the survey out. Obviously, we couldn't do that. But if you want to participate in the open meetings of the committee, check mytowngovernment.org or call the office, or you can contact them by the way Jane mentioned. You can leave your email in the chat in this, and they'll get back to you or keep you up to date on what's going on. And so the number of, we had comments and questions under this, 49 of them, and we will, like I said, we will track all the comments and questions from the survey, from this chat, from any questions that we get after this, and take that all into consideration on moving forward. As far as, I'd like to go back to, sorry, I meant to say on the age. So on the age, I meant to mention that the population in Petersham is aging. In 1990, the median age in Petersham was 39, and in 2019, it's 52. And that's a 33% increase in the median age of the people in Petersham. You're not the only ones. There's several communities in your area that are aging, and we work with them all the time. Phillipston, their median age is 45, but they're increasing at 41%. Hubbardston is increasing at 44%. So the other communities are catching up with you in the aging category, but I just wanted to point that out because the whole region is aging because there's not affordable housing that you can get in this area. And the median age in the Worcester County is 40, and in Massachusetts, it's 39.5. So sorry again, I just wanted to go back to that. Sorry. So the summary of the results. These are the buildings that people wanted demolished. The repurposed buildings: historic inn, chapel, music room, original stone feature. These were the top 5 uses according to the survey: outdoor recreation, senior community center, senior housing, mixed uses, and performing arts. And financing: not all town financed, charitable and private donations, and partner with a CDC or developer. So next steps. Excuse me. So like I said, we're going to analyze all the comments and questions that we get tonight, that we got on the survey, that we get by email, and have those answered and discussed in full at the next public meeting. We're going to review the top choices for demolition and repurposing and plot a path moving forward to how we can get this accomplished. We're going to meet with other town boards and departments to see, you know, where their board stands on the property, whether their board would be involved, whether their board would issue permits, would their board participate. So all of those, we will be reaching out to all of those. We'll research and analyze funding options, and that will be presented at the next meeting. And then we'll hold the public meeting to present answers to questions and discuss the potential funding options. And hopefully we can come to a consensus and get moving on this so it's no longer a thorn in people's sides. So that's it for my presentation, and I guess we'll take questions now. Ooh.
Hi, Karen. There's been no questions in the chat.
Wow.
Karen, one thing you might mention is that that entire presentation is also posted on the town's website. So
Yes, sorry, or I forgot, Henry. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that.
so everything that people have just seen is posted on the town's website.
So I don't know if I went through that too fast. If anybody has questions, wants me to go back to a particular slide.
There is a question. Along with considering benefits of CDC, might there be benefit in considering municipal redevelopment authority for any repurposing of the Nichewaug property?
Excellent question, Henry. Would you like to take that?
I'm sorry. So what was that again?
Along with considering the benefits of CDC, might there be benefit in considering municipal redevelopment authority for any repurposing of the Nichewaug property?
Yeah. Well, we can look at that. I'm not sure that that mechanism works for a town of our small size, but we can look at that.
It's definitely something that we are going to look at all options, because you can't, not one method is going to take care of this. You're going to have to get money from several different sources. You're going to get, it's going to be a large project that will take a lot of work and dedication by a lot of people. And we have to make sure that there's consensus moving forward with what is chosen.
No mention was made of the library in the presentation. I was wondering, as the closest to butter, what the group has in mind as far as the library participation.
Well, like I said, the committee is aware of the library's issues, and they are going to be reaching out to other boards. Maybe Anne, you want to address that?
Yes, we do plan to include the library and the library's needs in our deliberations as we go forward. We will be meeting with representatives from the library at some point. Those meetings have not been set up yet, but they are definitely one of the considerations. What we're trying to do is come up with something that's good for the town. And it could be good for the town in many ways, and certainly helping the library with some of the problems that it has, such as sewage and water access, are beneficial to the town and the town center. Karen did mention the library a couple of times in the presentation in talking about the comments that were made. And she was right when she said that we are not ignoring the library. Does
I'd
that
like
answer
to
your question, Bob?
This
What
is
was that
Jane.
again?
I asked if that answered your question.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Who else was, somebody else was trying to comment.
This was Jane, and I
Oh.
was, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I wanted to abridge that by saying that when we talk about meeting with the library, our plan over the next short time period is to have meetings with boards, committees, and any other entity within the town that can help us move forward as we're trying to decide what the direction is. So the Historical Society, the Council on Aging, any of these committees and boards would be really important in the process.
Thank you, Jane. I guess people can put forward oral questions. So if it's okay with Karen, then
Yeah.
if somebody has a question, please unmute yourself by hovering your cursor or tapping your cursor down at the bottom part of the screen or the window into which
We have
GoToMeeting
another
is.
question coming in. We have a lovely common for concerts and farmers market. What outdoor activities might be considered if some of the buildings are demolished?
The things that we have talked about, and that doesn't mean that these are exclusive. Certainly we would like to, because the community garden has dedicated members who are actively using it, we would like to keep the community garden if we possibly can. And I can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to do that. People have been talking about flooding the old ice rink for ice skating. That's not pond skating. We haven't talked a lot about the recreational uses, the outdoor uses, but you know, there are possibilities for putting tennis courts up if the town wants to do that, or an exercise trail. We're open to input, and if you would like to, you know, help work on that aspect of the project, please start coming to our meetings and we'll figure out how to have you help us look into the options. I don't know who asked that. Did that answer your question?
And I think that was in the chat.
I didn't hear you, Jane.
That was in the chat.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting the impression, because nobody has questions, that you're satisfied with the survey as it's done, and that you really think we should go on ahead and push forward without you raising any other issues. Is that true?
Actually, I did have my mic turned on. It's Mark Bishop. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we are.
I think you did a great job with this presentation. You know, really, really well done. I was particularly interested in the age statistics that you used to create the pie charts. Is that on the website as well, the backup data for that pie chart?
Yes.
Yes.
It is, good.
There's a file on there that's something like Petersham demographic data. And
Yeah,
it has
okay,
the pie chart from which it has the data pulled from the same source as that background data on the slideshow.
Yeah. Well, we may want to repurpose that in another board.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for all that work.
Anytime you need data, Mark, our MRPC is your place.
Okay. Let me see now, what's your telephone number? You put that in here somewhere here, right?
It's not in there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put my email in here and you can send it to me. How's that sound?
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's also very easy to search for them and get their main number. And I think also get Karen's number.
Yes. Henry, do you have an email for Mark?
I do.
No, I've got Henry.
Can you send him my contact information?
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. There is a new chat. Ann Kavanaugh has a question. Let's see if I can get my eyes to read this. There are actually two in here.
Said thank you for the committee's work in conducting the survey. We found your report helpful and looking forward to the next step. And someone else said, I'd love to see that what we retain from what we see from Main Street be retained. So they would,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, we certainly want to keep the quality of the town center intact. I think it's one of the most beautiful commons in the state, and I think most of us would like to keep it that way.
Well, I beg to differ. I'm from a different town.
I know you would.
We all have unique commons here in New England.
I'll maintain my stance on the Petersham Common.
I don't
And
know how
think-
to, I don't know how to quantify this, but I wonder if everybody that's on this did in fact do the survey.
Oh, we can't, unfortunately,
Yeah,
we
there's,
can't vote like a Zoom meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, can't take a show of hands. Well, let me ask this question of the group. Let's just look right now at the top 3 choices. The top choice was, could you show that slide, Karen?
Recreational use.
Yeah, I wanted to actually see all of them at the same time. Okay, was to put in some sort of recreational use. The second choice was a senior or community center, and the third choice was senior housing. Let's just look at those top 3. What do people think about those? Do you think that we really need more outdoor recreation, given that we live in a town where at least a third of the land is open space? Now, I'm just being argumentative here. I'm not, don't take what I say as what I think. Okay, Charles Tower does.
Well, I
No
think
other-
again, when you're talking about outdoor recreation, there's a very wide range in what that means to people. I think, if you're looking at green space, that's on one end of the spectrum, and on the other end of that same outdoor recreation is what you mentioned: tennis courts, ice skating rink, exercise paths, and that kind of thing. So those are very different
Mm-hmm.
to look at green space or outdoor space, and they also have very varying costs within each of those items. If you're talking about just leaving a green space, that's one cost, but if you're talking about tennis courts or parking for the tennis courts or anything like that, you're talking about a very different financial aspect.
Absolutely. And one of the things that one of the things that we're going to be looking at as we go forward is, with outdoor recreation being the top choice, we have to look seriously at what kinds of outdoor recreation we might put there. And we need people's input in order to help determine what the options are and eventually help determine what people in town would prefer as the options on that. So we're going to need your help in trying to figure out how to move forward on these. The second option was a senior or community center. And we had a couple who spent some time looking into what community centers and senior centers, their particular focus was senior centers, but what senior centers have been exist in various towns around central Massachusetts down into the Connecticut River Valley. And they were in the process of visiting some of these when COVID hit and they had to stop visiting places. As soon as we can, we'll be looking at that more carefully again. And we will need to decide, do we want it to be strictly a senior center, if this is an option that we choose, strictly a community center, or some combination of the two? And I believe that we found that if you apply for state money to build a senior center, that it cannot fund a community center. There might be some way of building a smaller community senior center inside of the community center, but the people, excuse me, who were doing the research on this indicated to us that that senior centers and community centers with state-funded money could not share facilities. So, you know, these are some of the complications we're looking at when we start talking about funding. And if we decide to go that way, we'll have to make a choice. We'll have to make a decision about exactly how to put that together. And senior housing. When the Nichewaug Inn Task Force 10 years ago looked into senior housing, the people that were brought in to look at the Nichewaug and think about senior housing all wanted to put in 35 units or more. And I don't believe that Petersham really wants 35 units of senior housing on the common. And I'm sure Petersham doesn't need 35 units of senior housing right now on the common. But again, we have to look at the ins and outs of doing senior housing if we're going to do it. How do we fund a small number of senior housing units? And again, we need help to do this research. So I'd be interested if anybody had sort of gut reaction comments about those three things that we can sort of tuck in the backs of our minds as we go forward. But I also, as we wrap up, I'm going to be calling for more volunteers to help us get some of this work done. So think about areas that you're really interested in, and think about whether or not you've got time to help us look into how to pull something together on this site. There are more questions or comments.
Yes, we're getting a lot of comments about how, you know, multiple uses can be used on such a big property, and that, you know, there's a lot of green space already in town, and that they like, you know, structured recreation. And then there's also a comment regarding how senior housing could bring in income while the other uses may cost the town. So that's another thing to think about.
Yes, good. Thanks for reading through those and summarizing them. They're all good
And again,
comments.
all of these comments will be saved and referred back to at other meetings.
Okay. Henry, your screen just lit up like you wanted to say something. Was that?
That was an accident, but
Okay.
on the recreation front, given the the demographics, the median age, perhaps shuffleboard should be at the top of our list.
Are you implying that those of us who are over 65 can only do shuffleboard?
No.
I know some over 55s who are pretty aggressive at playing hockey.
Well, I have to say, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm surprised that I know this is an awkward platform for asking questions and giving feedback, but I was hoping we were going to get more questions and more incisive questions and more comments that would help us as we move forward. Ashley Warren says she was going to suggest shuffleboard also.
There was a good point made that performing arts and music and artist spaces would help attract younger folks into the town as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And there is great compatibility with the top 3 and 5th item.
Yes.
Yes. And they can all coexist easily on the 6+ acre property.
Yes. And one comment I will make with about senior housing is, I was on the planning board many, many decades ago, and I was very surprised that we didn't have any sort of dedicated senior housing in town. And as I asked the older people that I knew in town about whether or not they would like senior housing, and this has continued on to the present, they said almost to the person, "Oh, yes, we need senior housing." And my follow-up question is, well, will you take advantage of it when you can't stay in your house anymore? And the answer was always, "Oh, I'm going to die in my home." And time after time, those people who said that have had to move out of town because we have no housing that's really appropriate for seniors in Petersham. So I think it's time to, grab this opportunity and see if we can incorporate a few senior units into our plans. But
So Karen, given that you've been working around the region for several years, have you worked with other communities with a property where a good portion of it may have been demolished and maybe some of it was rebuilt or retrofitted somehow?
I have not. I've only been working regionally for 3 years now. And a lot of the communities are in your same situation where we don't have money to get out of our own way. And so what do we do with these buildings? We do have a brownfields program at MRPC that looks at contaminated sites, but I personally have not been involved in a site like this.
one of the things I will say in sort of partial answer to your question, Henry, is that I have talked with a variety of potential funders for historic spaces. Hang on one second. And nobody that I have talked with yet is willing to fund demolition without having a complete plan, including blueprints for the kinds of things that would go on the site after any demolition happens, even if it's only partial demolition. So we may be in a place where, unless we can find some real planning money, that we may have to put some real town effort into deciding exactly what we want on that site and going as far as getting the designs done and the blueprints done before we can apply for money to do any renovation or demolition. But that's part of what Karen is going to help us with. And she has told us, Karen, would you like to talk about the new portal that the state has? Would you just like to mention that?
Sure. So the state just came out with a new program where they've combined several grant programs into one grant program. I believe it's 10 different grant programs, including MassWorks. I can't think of them all off the top of my head right now, but so there's a new portal where a town would put in the projects that they have for redevelopment or whatever project they have. And the state would then there's 3 agencies who formed a committee, and this committee will look at all of the projects that the towns put in and evaluate them for what they're calling a development continuum. So the program goes all the way from, like you have a site, we have a site, we don't know what to do with it, all the way to construction. So it's planning, it's design, it's financing, it's construction, it's infrastructure. So you put your project into this portal and they guide you along the way and provide grants for you at the step you're in the development continuum. So say you're in the planning stages, so they would help with technical assistance with planning and feasibility and which direction we should go. And okay, now we've decided what we're going to do, and we need money to demolish or we need money to redevelop. So they'll direct you towards this one of 2 grant programs. So it's sort of a way, instead of, we traditionally, MRPC, would search endlessly for grants here, there, and everywhere. And by packaging this whole development continuum, they call, into one program, it is just an amazing step for getting grants. And so you can enter as many projects as you want, and they will advise you on, this doesn't seem like a good project, maybe you don't do this one. So you take that project out. You can exit the program anytime you want at any stage you're at, but I don't know why anyone would want to get out except that the project's no longer valid. But it's really a great program, and it's just come out, and the first step is to submit expressions of interest, which is basically listing all the projects that you have. And the actual grant application is not due until June 4th, but right now they're taking expressions of interest so they can review all the projects and put everybody in the silo in a certain place on the continuum and move forward from there. And I really think it may be a good idea for Petersham for this project and any other projects that you may have,
And you recommended, you suggested that we could also just call and talk to the people at these
Absolutely.
various agencies about
Absolutely.
our project. Okay.
So under this program, and there's an organization, it's a quasi government organization called Mass Housing Partnership, and they provide free technical assistance to communities who are looking to do housing. And so they can provide technical assistance for anything that you need as far as planning and development, and they can review pro formas for you. And they, if you reach out to them and say you want assistance, they'll put you in the queue, and then when it's your turn, they'll call you and give you whatever assistance you need at the time.
Thank you.
It seems like the state is trying to be more helpful, which is great, because they haven't really been very helpful in the past. Like I said, we looked everywhere for grants, and you apply to this one, you apply to that one, and they're not really helpful. But this looks like an excellent program.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have a comment or question?
But it does underscore that the town needs to come up with a vision for the property, sort of, what the
Right.
use is, what the direction is, what the vision is, in order to get the money for the demolition or whatever else might be involved.
Yes, that's our job. Our job is in the town, not as in the Nichewaug Academy Committee. We are here to help make recommendations.
So, Anne, the next meeting of the committee is when?
Well, we meet on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. So the next one is on March 8th, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, that's the 2nd. And we invite people to come to any or all of our meetings. We meet by Zoom. And the information for joining by phone is on mytowngovernment.gov. I'm sorry, not .gov, .org. mytowngovernment.org. You can actually go into that site and ask to be kept up to date on any particular committee that you're interested in, and they will mail you the updates for those committees as they come in. And we post our agenda on that. It meets the legal requirement for posting for the state of Massachusetts. So that will always be accurate. And I encourage you to join our meetings and to help us think through these processes. You see that we still have we've done a lot of work. We still have a lot of work to go. We need people's thoughts and opinions and questions, and we need your labor also. Whatever you can do for us. We need people to do lots of different kinds of things. We will start meeting, we haven't set them up yet, but we will start meeting with town committees and boards, and also with other allied groups that are in town, as Jane mentioned, like the library. And we'll start scheduling those as soon as we can to meet with them and to interact with them to help work through the things that we have to work through. We will schedule another face-to-face public information meeting about the survey and about where we stand at the moment. We were hoping to do that face-to-face before now, but clearly that's not the case. We will wait for that meeting until all of the people involved, the CDC, the state government and the town government, and the Nichewaug Inn and Academy Committee believe that it's really safe to meet together in person, and that will give us a better face-to-face dialogue, I think. Other next steps. That's really it. And we encourage you to send comments and questions to nichprop@outlook.com. That's NICHPROP, short for Nichewaug Property, NICHPROP@outlook.com. And we'll read those, or Jane has given her phone number. Do you want to repeat that, Jane?
My phone number is 978-790-7107.
Okay.
I think that's also, it's on the
Go ahead.
Nichewaug page. It's on the Nichewaug page.
Okay, good. So we really would like feedback from people so we can move forward. But I think it's time for us to wind down if there are no other questions or comments. Henry, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah,
Jane?
I did want to thank Karen and MRPC and look forward to your continuing to work with us this calendar year, and to thank Ann Lewis and Jane Lynch Gilbert for their countless hours in this, and encourage others to help. It's a thorny problem, we know that, but hopefully working with Karen, we'll be able to look at some of the cost issues, the funding possibilities, so that it will make it an easier lift for the town when we finally get ready to move ahead on something. So
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and appreciate your interest, and stay tuned.
Okay, I also want to thank Henry. I want to thank Henry for being present at all of our meetings and helping us move this thing forward. And I want to thank Nancy on the select board. She's been an impressive source, long-lived source of how the town works on certain things. So we go to her for those kinds of questions. And I want to give a special thanks to Kayla for being the moderator on this. And I want to thank all of you for attending this meeting and for filling out the survey. And I want to thank you in advance for whatever help you give us in the future. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're
Jane.
welcome.
Oh, sure. Jane, do you have anything?
I don't. I just sent a little thank you to everyone in the chat, and I think that we hope to see people on March 8th on the virtual meeting of Nichewaug.
And you can contact us if you want to. As I said, on mytowngovernment.org, it tells how to join by phone, but it says to contact the chair, and you can find an email for me on that site and email me, or you can contact us through nicheprop@outlook.com, and we will send a link to you for joining the Zoom meetings, because we meet by Zoom. I also want to say that, oh, it was important. Was it about Zoom?
Must have been a lie.
Oh, I don't believe I lost it that quickly. It was right on the tip of my tongue. It
Sucks
was
to get
about the
old.
meetings, but okay, it's gone forever. My mother would always say, well, it couldn't have been important. And I go, Mom, the house is about to burn down. That's what I was trying to say. All right.
So we should probably wrap it up.
Thank you all. 60
Thank
something.
you.
Oh, Chuck is calling me over 50, over 60. Yep. Senior moment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.